Craft your own grooves and fills the easy way. In other words, this is how to improvise a groove or fill even if you're a total beginner. Maybe you feel like you can't improvise on the drums. You feel like you can't create anything new. You feel like you're just regurgitating simple things that you've already learned. And maybe you struggle also to pick out parts by ear when you listen to a song. Obviously, this leaves you discouraged because learning songs is taking too long and you don't feel creative on top of that. This is kind of a skill that goes hand in hand, being able to improvise and being able to also pick out parts. And it's very frustrating when you can't do that and you feel like you lack talent, you lack a good ear, and you just wonder what the problem is and you feel like it's not something you can overcome. What if, however, you could learn to craft a dozen different grooves or fills on your own by the end of this YouTube lesson? What would that do for you? And what if that also allowed you to more effortlessly learn new grooves and fills by ear from a song? How powerful would that be? I mean, this could be huge. So this is what we're diving into today. This is what I hope is really going to help you a ton in this area. When I was a beginner drummer in high school, my first drum set teacher introduced me to a drumming method book. You may have heard of it. This is a legendary method called Syncopation by Ted Reed. This book, or literally a single page from this book, single-handedly taught me how to improvise and create on the drums. Now, there's kind of two components to this where, yes, this definitely taught me to improvise, but also just listening to music and learning songs, that has a big part as well. But the thing that a lot of new drummers, especially self-taught beginners, get stuck on is this. Most drummers think that creativity on the drums is an advanced skill that only comes after a decade or so of learning. But the truth is, a total beginner can learn to improvise and create from day one. And you're no exception. So this is what we're diving into today. We're going to learn to create and improvise and learn by ear more easily by using the one rhythm exercise, as I like to call it. This is going to be step by step, super practical and fun. You can follow along with me and you're going to feel so much more encouraged and empowered to create and even improvise by the end of today's lesson. You can do this. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out today. I hope self-taught beginner drummers know what to practice so that you can nail songs and have fun playing songs and even play with a band well if that's what you want to do, and be the drummer other people want in their band and that they want to jam with. And that means being creative. That means being able to improvise and not being just stuck on a couple of things that we play over and over again that become kind of meaningless and not intentional. We want to be able to intentionally create and play things that fit the song. And this all starts with really what we're talking about today with this one rhythm exercise, which is going to be a whole bunch of fun. And I think it's going to help you out a lot, even if you're a total beginner. Okay, 5 steps. Step 1, we're going to break down what this one rhythm is. Step 2, we're going to talk about turning it into a drum fill. Step 3, we're going to turn it into a groove. Step 4, we're going to start going a little further with this and playing around with it. And step 5, we'll talk about what this means for learning things by ear. So here we go. Step number 1. Here's our rhythm. So this is just my go-to rhythm for teaching this kind of concept because I feel like it's simple enough, a beginner can catch on to it, but there's enough to it that it's interesting. So here's our rhythm. Here it is on the screen. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We're going to learn it by counting, by clapping, by playing it in your head. So if you see this written out, if you're brand new to notation, you'll catch on to this, but something that you learn to do is count things. This is an 8th note based rhythm, so we're counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's how we count the 8th note. So where are the notes? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Bum, bump, bum, 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 bump, bum, bum. Get that in your head. Just a tip, and this is something that could be a lesson on its own. Make sure that you're never counting while physically playing. If you're ever counting while you're playing the drums, then that is a major hindrance, a major roadblock that's going to stall you because you're trying to do math instead of make music, and the two can never go together. If you're trying to count while you're playing and you're trying to count out rhythms as you're playing, it's never going to feel good. It's never going to sound good. So what you've got to make sure you do is count before, count in order to learn, but don't count when you play. This requires a little bit of patience. Again, this is a lesson in and of itself. We can talk about this more later. But for right now, I want you to get this rhythm in your head so you're not counting it anymore. You're just feeling it. Bump, 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 bump. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward rhythm that can be played really slow or played pretty quickly. It's nice and versatile. That's why I picked this one. Now, step 2. Time to start getting creative with this. Step 2, how could we turn this simple rhythm into a drum fill? Well, this is not rocket science. If we wanted to make this into a drum fill, first we could just play the rhythm on the snare. So here's our tempo. Like that. Why is it though that that doesn't really feel like a fill? It just feels like we're playing a rhythm. Well, it's because it's not in context. The mistake that too many drum students make is isolating fills and isolating grooves and learning fills. What if right off the bat we connect them? What if you're a brand new beginner and instead of you having to struggle with fill transitions like everybody else does, what if you could go ahead and start learning to marry them together, because you're never really going to have a fill without a groove. Probably shouldn't say never, but it's very rare that you're just going to play a fill in a song and that's all. Most of the time there's a groove, there's some sort of pattern you're playing that leads into the fill, and then you go from that fill back into that thing. So many drummers get stuck on this, the whole fill transitions thing, but it's not rocket science. What if we go ahead and start putting these things together and make this a fill by just playing a groove, playing the rhythm, playing a groove, playing the rhythm. Just like this. We actually talked about this in a recent video about nailing your fill transitions. So what we could do is just go like this. Now I was keeping some time on the hats there for you just for context and pulse as I played that super slow, sparse snare fill. You don't have to do that. If you've ever practiced the leg bounce and left foot timekeeping, that could be helpful to you. You could bounce your leg to help keep time there. But if not, don't worry about it. Remember, we're just thinking about that rhythm and feeling it. And if you can start doing that over and over again, what happens is you begin lumping the fill in with the groove so that the one unit here is groove and fill. We have groove and fill, and we're looping that over and over again. We're not thinking, what's the groove, what's the fill, what's the groove, what's the fill? We want to start connecting these things, which is a huge secret to playing songs really well. This is something else that we talked about in a recent lesson. We called it the flexibility exercise. So look up that lesson, something from just a few weeks before this one. The whole concept is be able to connect all these things so that you're feeling them and treating them as one thing and not as all these individual pieces, and you're trying to remember what order they come in. And so that's what we want to start doing here. Now, obviously, we can do way more with this rhythm than just play it on the snare. We could also move it around the toms. We could go like that. There's a million different ways we could orchestrate it, right? No right or wrong. We can move things around, which is kind of cool. So back into the groove here. So that last thing I did there, this is where this can kind of get interesting. We could play the rhythm with our hands and fill the space with the kick. So what if we went like this? So did you hear the rhythm? That was a rhythm there, played on the snare, but we used the kick to fill in all the spaces. So it kind of gave it this drive. Suddenly it wasn't sparse anymore. So that could be the fill. We could be playing along. A lot of cool ways you can orchestrate that. So don't put yourself in a box of like, okay, I've learned this rhythm now. Here's how I can play it. Great, let's move on to the next thing. A flawed mindset that it's easy to get stuck here, that you've got to get out of, is the learning something and then quickly moving on to something else. Because something that you have to realize on the drums, this is true with any instrument, but I think it's especially true with the drums. There are always more ways of playing the thing you just learned. Whatever it is you learn, there's always more to explore with that thing, especially when it's really simple like this, where it's just a rhythm. There are so many things we can do with this, way beyond today's lesson. We could spend all day here talking about this, but we're keeping it simple today. There's always more you can explore, learn, benefit you can gain from. There's just always more you can do musically with that thing. And so it is a mistake to quickly move on to something else and assume, oh, I learned that time to do something else. But yet that's what so many beginners do. And it's easy to do that when you're learning via YouTube. And there's, you're watching this video right now, and over here on the right side, you see all these videos about all these other things you can be doing. It's really easy to get sidetracked and be like, well, let's go learn this. Let's go learn this. Let's go learn this. It's even worse, with YouTube Shorts or Instagram, where it's all these short little bits where, let me go learn that. Okay, let's learn this, learn this. Before you know it, you've printed out 1,000,000 transcriptions for 1,000,000 things, and your practicing is chaos, and you're not practicing any one thing well. You're not learning any one thing deeply. You're just trying to do 1,000,000 things. You're not going to get good at the drums doing that. You've got to focus, and you've got to fully explore that one simple thing. What all can I do with this? I'll tell you a secret. That's what makes the difference between, drummers that get pretty good and they get stuck versus drummers who get really good. The difference is that the ones who get stuck are the ones who are trying to practice 1,000,000 things, but they never learn to practice well. The ones who get really good are the ones who maybe even practice less things, but they practice those things really well. Topic for other lessons. We can dive deep into that, but just a reminder for you that we want to thoroughly explore something. Always be creative, always stay curious, because you are creative, because you have curiosity. Maybe you haven't yet honed that curiosity on the drums, but I know that you are human, you are made in the image of God, you are made creative, and so there's creativity there that you have found somewhere else in some other area of life maybe. Maybe in your career, at work, maybe there's something that you are creative with, maybe there's some other hobby that you're creative with. What you have to do is tap into that creativity on the drums and remember, hey, I am a creative person. I can be creative with this. I can be curious with this. And when you take that approach, you grow a lot faster. Okay, enough about that, but that is absolutely critical, a critical mindset to really succeeding at this. Let's get into step 3, because this is where this also gets even more interesting. So we talked about turning that into a fill there in step 2, making it feel like a fill. Well, in step 3, how could we turn this simple rhythm into a groove? What if we're thinking groove mindset, like kick pattern, groove, rock groove, instead of fill? Well, at its simplest, we can make that rhythm our kick drum pattern. In rock drumming, something to notice is that the bass drum is your melodic material. If you're playing rock grooves of all sorts, right hand is just keeping time. We're doing some cool stuff on the snare, but really the interesting rhythms are happening on the bass drum. And so being able to apply a rhythm to the bass drum, that's critical. So that's a great place to start here. Make that rhythm the kick pattern. So if our rhythm, you still remember it? If you pause the video and you ask yourself, do I remember the rhythm? Bump, 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 bump. So if we played that rhythm verbatim on the bass drum, then we'll have bass and snare lining up on beat 4. We could, though, remove that bass drum note on beat 4 because it's happening on the snare, and we could go. Super simple beginner rock beat. Shows up in all sorts of songs. Boom, ba, boom, boom, ba. But our rhythm, our one rhythm, is there. Boom, boom, ba, boom. There it is. So that's a great way to do it. Now, we can experiment with moving 1 or 2 of the notes from the rhythm to the snare. So what if we said, okay, it doesn't have to all be on the bass drum. If we have so we could play around with that. We could remove a backbeat. We could go. There's that. What if we put the and of 2 on the snare? What if we went? So we've taken the middle note, the second note from our rhythm, put that on the snare. We've taken the last note, the one that's on beat 4, and put that on the snare. So we still have our exact rhythm. We're just moving it around, putting some notes on the bass drum, some notes on the snare. Just that is a cool feeling groove, right? And it's still the same rhythm. What else? What else can we do here? Maybe you're familiar with the song Clocks by Coldplay from, I think, 2002. If you can think of that song, go listen to it if you want to. But that whole groove, that whole song, the groove is basically. That's almost our rhythm happening on the snare, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 4. Almost our rhythm. Our rhythm is. We're also adding in that and of 3. It's almost the same. So what if we were to clocks this rhythm and turn it into the clocks groove by playing. Now, if you're paying attention, and you were paying attention a few minutes ago, you know that that's one of the same things we came up with when we were doing fills, when we were seeing what kind of fills can we come up with here. So we're kind of blurring the lines between what's a groove and what's a fill, because we came up with a fill that was that. If we were playing. Well, that could be the fill, or what if that's the groove? And maybe the fill is something like that. Go, 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 go. Something simple. Maybe that's the groove. So where does this put us now? If a given thing can be a groove or it can be a fill, then what is a fill? What is a groove? We can start getting really philosophical here with our drumming philosophy. What we're landing on really is that any fill or any groove is essentially a rhythm. Where did we start today? We started with a rhythm. We started with one core rhythm. Be thinking about core rhythms with anything you play, anything you learn, any fill, any groove. What is the core rhythm? When you understand this, this really unlocks a lot on the drums, because what you realize is that everything is built out of rhythms. When you listen to a song, you realize the melody has rhythm, because melody is not just, pitch and whatnot. That's a big part of it. When we get a song stuck in our head, we're thinking about the notes, the pitches that we're hearing, but it's just as much the rhythm of the melody, not just the notes, it's the rhythm of the melody. And so when we can start noticing rhythm in music, we can start playing more musically and start interacting with those melodic rhythms that are happening, which is pretty cool. We're going to talk a little more about that in just a moment. I'm starting to get ahead of myself. So step 4, where have we gone so far? So we've taken our rhythm, we've put together grooves, we've put together fills. Now it's your turn. What can you do with this? How many ways can you come up with to play this? Back at the beginning, I said, what if you could play a dozen different grooves or fills that you've made up on your own by the end of today's lesson? Well, basically, you've got 6. I guess you could say it's 5, because one of these was actually a groove and a fill. You got 5. How many more can you come up with? What else can you think of? It doesn't have to be a huge difference. It can be like a slight change. Like, what if you did... What else do you unlock with a different context? And that's what's kind of interesting here. Every style of playing, every genre of music is sort of like a language, and it can create a context for using this rhythm. So what I just did for you worship drummers out there. So I'm a fellow church drummer. I've been playing in church for, as of a few weeks ago, half of my lifetime. I've been playing in church every Sunday. A lot of these modern worship songs have these tom grooves. Love them or hate them, there's so many tom grooves in worship songs. We can talk about that in another lesson. But what you can do here is apply the rhythm, whatever the rhythm is we're doing, to the toms. Because a lot of times in worship music, the toms are the melodic material. It might not be the bass drum. It could be when we get into like a... Once we get into like a full groove, maybe the bass drum is the melodic material, but maybe in the verse of the song... There's actually a song called Won't Stop Now by Elevation that is very much that. That's basically our rhythm applied to the tom. So practice doing that. Think about different styles of music, different songs you know, and think, okay, if I were playing that kind of groove or that kind of song, how might I apply this rhythm? That can give you some cool ideas and really get you thinking. So step 5, where I started to skip to a minute ago, because this is where it really does get fun. Step 5, what does this mean for our learning and listening, like our listening to songs, our learning by ear? Well, we're learning to recognize rhythms, not drum parts. So that means whenever you hear a groove in a song, you're not thinking, what are all the drum parts or what are all the notes, and you're trying to figure out what the notes are. You're just thinking, what is the core rhythm? If you hear a groove go boom, maybe there's a lot of notes there, but what's the core rhythm? What's the main rhythm that you feel? Boom, 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Maybe it happens to be our core rhythm today. Maybe it's something else. But see if you can count that out, internalize that, because what you'll realize is if I know the core rhythm of that groove, it doesn't matter whether or not I play that groove note for note correctly. Because there could be so many intricacies. There could be... It would take me forever to notate out every detail of what I just played. But it didn't take me forever to just play it. As you grow on the drums, you'll be able to take a rhythm and play that rhythm and then create variations on it. That's the big skill we want to work toward here. So learn to recognize rhythms, not drum parts. The same is true with a fill. When you hear a fill happen, like Africa by Toto, for instance, going into the first chorus. I don't know if that was perfect, but I think that's roughly what Jeff Porcaro played in that. I think he goes, ba, boom, 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 doo, doo, doo. Into the first chorus of Africa, then it's shorter into the second chorus. But boom, 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 doo, doo, ga. Pay attention to the rhythm. What is the rhythm? 1 E and A, 2 E and A, 3 E and A, 4 E and A. When you can internalize the rhythm, remember the rhythm, maybe it helps to write it out, it helps to count it, play it in your head, then it doesn't matter so much which drums you hit. Like, you're gonna get the feel of it right. I don't know how many toms Porcaro had on his kit when they recorded that. You know, you could play... That works. You could play... That works. You know, there's different ways you can do it as long as the rhythm is there. It's the core rhythm that's important, not the detailed notes or orchestrations, because your drum set is probably totally different from the one on the record. Who knows how many toms that drummer had? You know, that drummer's setup could have been entirely different with different cymbals in different places. And so you can't possibly emulate it note for note, but you can emulate the rhythm. Be thinking in rhythms. And so hopefully you're seeing the connection here with when you're able to think in rhythms, identify the rhythm of whatever groove or fill you play, then you'll start to hear these rhythms more in music too. You'll start to notice, oh, hey, that was a rhythm. I felt that as a rhythm. When you learn to think in rhythms, notice these rhythms, you can then learn parts by ear much more easily. Music is all about rhythms. Learn to think in rhythms, learn and create faster. You really do learn faster, you really do create faster when you're learning to think in rhythms. Those become your building blocks. So back to what I was talking about at the very beginning of this, Syncopation by Ted Reed. There's a specific page in there, page 38. It's kind of the legendary page. A lot of great drummers will tell you, yeah, Syncopation, page 38, that's where I learned everything, pretty much. Basically what that page is it's a whole bunch of rhythms like the one that we did today. And what you can do is take those rhythms and play them a million different ways. Every teacher has their different ways of teaching it. My teacher had 7 different ways that he had me do it at first. And since then, I've learned so many other variations, and I actually sat down the other day and wrote out 25 different ways you might play a given rhythm. And that was only in a couple of styles. You know, as you get into more styles of music, more ways of playing, you find, oh, there's like so many ways I can integrate rhythms into what I play, because so many styles of music will have that same rhythm in common. You can use the same rhythm across all these different styles. It just sounds different because you're playing it in a different way. So it also goes back to talking about, hey, don't fall for the trap of moving on to the next thing all the time. Sometimes the goal is not to learn more. The goal is to see, what can we do with this thing? Page 38 of Syncopation, you can spend years on that. I have my own version of it, and I want you to work through it. I want you to download it. I have a free PDF downloaded in the description. That's this is one. I have a couple of know what to practice guides. I have a newer one that takes a more rock approach. I have an older one that does the jazz and the Latin stuff. That's what this one is. And in it is my version of the Syncopation page 38 exercise. So if you don't have Syncopation by Ted Reed, you can basically grab my version of it, and it breaks down how to approach it, and you'll see the power behind all this. And actually, the rhythm that we talked about today is the measure 1 of my Syncopation page 38 method. So go check it out if you really want to go deep with this, and have fun going deep. Instead of trying to learn more stuff, try to learn this thing better and see what all you can do with it. Have fun being creative. Have fun applying this into songs and learning to hear rhythms, feel rhythms, and think in rhythms, and you're going to be a way better drummer for it. All right, I hope today's lesson has been helpful for you. What is your next question on creating and improvising that we should cover next? I know as we start going deep into this stuff, I find myself all the time like, oh yeah, this could be a lesson in and of itself. Okay, let's move on. So if you notice any of those things and you're like, Steven, I want you to talk more about this, or get into that, or here's the next place I want to go with this, let me know in the comments. I'm always working on brainstorming some more content, and let me know, what did we not cover today? What did you feel like was missing? What should we do next? Let me know. All right. As always, stay non-glamorous. Know that you can do this. You can be a creative drummer who learns to improvise. This is a great way to start. I'll see you on the next lesson.